Welcome to The Collective, where every conversation ignites a new perspective. Join us as we delve into the journeys of remarkable individuals, explore the art of growth, resilience, and the power of a shared mission as we strive to be better together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Gold Mine. We have another fantastic show for you planned out today. I am stoked. We got Mike joining us for the first time. We got Keanan joining us for the first time. And I could not be more stoked for this. You should be as well. Like the show, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, do all the good stuff. Get your emails whenever we go live, which is, of course, Wednesdays for The Gold Mine, Fridays for The Collective. If you have not already, make sure you are signed up for the Reinforcement Loop. That is our weekly newsletter. It goes out every Sunday. You get a little bit of tidbit from the Wednesday show. You get a little tidbit from the Friday show. And then, of course, you get a little brain candy from Shaun. And it is fantastic. So sign up for the Reinforcement Loop. Stay in the loop with us all. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything at all, by all means, put them up in the comment section throughout the show, and we can hit those as we go. Other than that, let's get some intros, and then we can get right into the topic. Mike, you're on top. Give us a quick 10 to 15 seconds. Who are you, where you come from, all that good stuff, and we can move on. Hit it.
Hey, I'm Mike Burke. Currently, I'm up in Atlanta, Georgia. So originally from Montana, growing out in the Far East out there. 20-year military, most of it in special operations, transitioned into the acquisition sector, private equity with a company called Main Street Auto. We buy automotive shops, and also the founder and CEO of a media company called Legends of 75th.
Bam. I love it. Keanan, how about yourself?
My name's Keanan Patershuk. I'm a professional MMA fighter from Roslyn, British Columbia, originally from Kelowna, about 3.5 hours west. Yeah, that's about it, boys.
About it. Love it. Getting paid to beat people up. It was a good life. I love it. Shaun, how's Mount Street now? That's the idea. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Shaun, how's life treating you in the mountains?
Things are good. Looking forward to seeing where this conversation goes. I know the topic is quite interesting. We can take it in a bunch of different directions, but looking at the panel, I'm pretty sure it'll be solid.
Solid for sure. Well, let's get right into it then. I want to get your guys' first thoughts. I sent you the email there last night with the topic, the limits within. I want to get your guys' first thoughts. What do you think when you hear that, the limits within? Where you go in your mind? Mike, we'll hit you first.
Oh, okay. I think I'm noticing a theme here. I guess I get to keep on going first. Okay. The limits within, I found it very interesting because, it's this conversation of what's your limit. And I find that most people don't know where that is because they're not getting outside their comfort zone. They're not pushing it. They're not challenging it. But more importantly, they're also not surrounding themselves with people that are holding them accountable and truly, truly, truly challenging them. But then also on the adverse side of that, I would say, well, what is somebody's limit? And is there really ever one? Because just because you fail at something, it's very easy to say, well, that's my limit. Well, no, that's not true. You've actually raised the bar and created a new normal. And if you go back after it, the next time you might accomplish something that was impossible that first time. So I think, the discussion of it's truly limitless. I mean, we look at, what human beings are able to do, not only in the athletic sector, but, also business, leadership, and everything else. I mean, we're just constantly raising that paradigm and getting higher and higher. So it's a fascinating conversation for sure.
Yeah, I am stoked for this. You guys got lots of experience with this, and I cannot wait to get this going. I got a quick comment on the Instagram side. Ethos Harris jumped in and said, I find most people don't know what the limit is until they break it, which is, I think, a very good point. Keanan, how about yourself? What were your first thoughts?
I mean, Mike summed it up about as good as you can, man. It's one of those things. It just comes down to, it's a very overrated word nowadays, but discipline. People they don't want to put in the work, and they'll find any excuse they can to bow out. It's it all comes down to mindset. And yeah, I'm really interested to see where this conversation is going to go today, because we got some very intense guys here. So I'm excited to I'm excited to learn from you guys. You guys, very interesting group of boys.
It's going to be a gooder. Shaun, he calls you intense. What are your first thoughts?
Not true. He's met me. He knows I'm not intense. We've rolled together. He knows I'm not intense.
No, yeah, you will roll for sure. But
so I'll say this, that what I want to do is, because Mike kind of encapsulated the topic at hand really well. But then Keanan kind of played well with it so that I can now say this. I think that Keanan is right, that a lot of people don't want to do the work. They don't want to apply the amount of discipline necessary to achieve the outcome that they truly deserve. Now, why does it all fall apart? I think it's because, as Mike said, you need to be around people who you can see are accomplishing things or have accomplished things or will accomplish things for sure, that you believe they are a for sure kind of person. When you start hanging out with people who are slackers, are mediocre, are below normal, these are all catchwords. They don't really mean anything to anyone. As you hear them, you'll ascribe a certain definition to slacker. You'll see a vision in your head. You might even think of a friend. You might even think of a family member. So when you think of slacker, all of that can be changed, but it typically doesn't change because they're not inspired to change. And so, as Mike said, you got to be around the right people to understand what people are capable of. Then once you understand what people can do, then it's for you to start driving forward towards that thing. But along the way, you'll need some support. And that support is like more inspiration. So as people coming in out of your life on the regular, you're supposed to cherry pick the hard asses, the ass kickers, the people who are getting things done. There's tons of people who talk. There's far less who do. You got to find the doers, not the talkers.
I like where this is going already. When I put this little team together here to talk about this particular topic, the big thing I was thinking of was the fact that pretty much every limit that I've ever experienced in my life that I thought that was my limit was self-induced. At no point was something else in the way. It was always me. And when I was a slacker, when I was that guy that just, whatever, it's not really worth it, that was the limit. It was worth. I had to find something worth doing. And then, of course, I joined the military and I found something worth doing, which was, folding my shirts in a very clean square and making sure that everything is good to go. But it gave me a sense of that I could put the work in to do the thing right. And then once it was done, it was good to go. That made it worth it. So I'm super digging. I'm going to go around one more time. Mike, I'm going to hit you again. Any thoughts on anything we've done so far before I hit a video? What do you got?
No, I mean, Shaun, I just love, you talking about, you put yourself in rooms with people that you want to be like and that are going to challenge you. I mean, Keanan, if you're pursuing an MMA career, you want to get better daily. It wouldn't make sense for you to spend time with people that, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some random dog breeders. I don't know why that came to mind, but that's what came to mind. Like, like that wouldn't make sense. Or people that are opposed to violence in general. Like, all that's going to do is, it's an exchange of energy. And this is a conversation I've been having a lot lately. Like your job and what you're doing for a living has a certain energy around it. Well, obviously you're going to spend your time doing that. Well, it also is outside of your professional work and what you're trying to do too. You want to surround yourself and have people that are telling you the truth, but then also reinforcing that energy of what you're trying to do. Something I've noticed about myself way, way too late in life is that I'm a collector of negative energy people, meaning they bring negative energy and chaos to my life. And I actually need that. I didn't even realize it, but I needed it in order to provide myself purpose, direction, and everything else. Perfectly fine when I was in the military, because the military is nothing but chaos. Constantly, it's just constantly chaos, and you have to step into every single room and sort through it, figure out what to do and figure out how to do it, and you actually become extremely successful. The civilian world, you got to pull out of that. So now, even at this stage of my life, as old as I am, I'm realizing, oof, I've got to change the energy. I've got to change the limits of my life to drop back to what I'm doing because I'm in a different chapter.
I like where this is going. Keanan, what do you got?
Yeah, no, you and Mike both nailed that to a T, man. It's you have to, no matter what you're training for, it has to be with like-minded individuals. I travel from, a lot of different gyms during the year just so I can get the best work in with the hardest people because I want to get my butt kicked. I don't want to be the best guy there. I want to get pushed every single day to my limit so, I can learn new stuff and just, even if it's just a little bit of progression, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, like wholeheartedly agree with you guys.
Love it. Anybody that says I want to get into this room and get my butt kicked, I think I'm good to hang out with them because it's definitely great. Shaun, any thoughts?
Yeah, two separate thoughts. The first is playing straight off of what Keanan just said, and that is he's pursuing rooms that he steps into where he's not the man, where he's going to get his ass whooped. And that isn't common nowadays. It isn't common to self-select an industry where violence is your game and you're going to be receiving it on the regular. The military's different. The military's way different. When you sign up on day one, you're not really sure how bad you're going to get your ass kicked, but it's too late because you signed on the dotted line and there you are. You're in it to win it. But then, in Keanan's industry, on day one, he's not really signing on a dotted line. He's just tying on a white belt. And that white belt isn't a contract other than the one that you write with yourself. And so, it's two different approaches. The military kind of obligates you to get after it. I mean, not 100%, but, in the spirit of things, the comparison is that Keanan, to some degree, gets a little bit of an extra nod from me because he didn't sign on a dotted line. He just frickin' got after it. Now, the second thought that I've got is this, and again, it's a different thought. When Keanan is training, what a lot of people don't see is how hard he has to train, or how far he has to travel, or how much his family has to support him, or how much sleep he does or doesn't get. Is he on rice and beans? Does he have holes in his socks? No one knows. No one knows other than Keanan because he doesn't whine about it. He doesn't complain. He just freaking gets after it. He gets things done. And he's taken some losses. And I'm not talking like big losses in big fights. That's not what I'm referring to. To stay in that journey, you got to take losses. The little invisible losses that nobody talks about when you get tapped as a white belt, like those things you're still hanging on to. The fight that you lose, everyone sees that and you know it and you feel it. But there's a freaking boatload of losses that lead up to that big loss in front of the big stage. Keanan doesn't talk about that too much. I think, personally, fellas like Keanan need to be in front of the microphone a little bit more because there's a ton of dudes out there that hit me up and hit my friends up and say, I wish I woulda, shoulda, coulda stepped into your shoes and done your job. Yeah, okay, well, here we are, pal. We're on the sidewalk talking about it. But you didn't. Now what? What are you going to do now? And so Keanan's path is what anyone can do. But we need more people like Keanan to talk about what that journey means to them as an individual, not just as a martial artist, but as perhaps a man, and how that evolves you into a better man.
Let's dive into it, Keanan. What are you thinking? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. Fighting in itself has done so much for me. It's made me, you think such a violent sport that it wouldn't translate to this, but it has. It's made me such a better father, husband, in all attributes. Like I feel like I've gained patience through through martial arts and control and yeah. How do I put it? It's evolved me in so many ways, and it's re-taught me a lot of lessons. Actually, coming from a sports background since I was like 10 years old. My parents were both like semi-pro athletes, and my grandpa was a professional bodybuilder. So I was thrown into it early, really early and suffered so many losses growing up. I was on so many losing teams where you'd win like 2 hockey games in a year and you'd lose 40 of them. You know what I mean? And it was just a constant grind. But once I made it to this professional level, and again, used to losing, used to crowds, used to pressure, all that type of thing, and it hit me mentally in a way that I hadn't really been struck before. It was first time I've really felt that way, where I almost had to reprogram my brain over the course of like 16 months, where I like really had to 180 and fight to not necessarily get my confidence back to where it was, but yeah, it's hard to explain. But yeah, for the first time in my life, I kind of had that dip where I wasn't sure if I could do something, and then it just clicked back, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, stop being ridiculous. It's as easy, if you want something, you go get it. You know what I mean? Like what we were touching on before, people assume that something's hard and it's going to take just a little bit too much effort, so they quit. Like I started this at almost 29 and I'm 31 now, and I've managed to do what I've done in my pro career so far and progress as a fighter what I have to this point. And it's not because people can say you got good genetics, which I do. But I do have good genetics. I definitely had an athletic start on a lot of people, but I've only been doing this 3.5 years, and I'm already competing against guys that have been to the UFC, that are going to the UFC. It's just it's a mindset like anything.
I love it. This is it brings up an interesting question in my mind, because this happens. We see this a lot in the military, where there are tons of losses, left, right, and center, but nobody talks about those losses. Right? The things that that go up on the guidon are massive wins and huge victories, and those are the things that are celebrated. And everyone has these histories within the military, within their own units, of like, yeah, we did this and we did these things, and Medal of Honor winner and Victoria Cross and da 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 da. But nobody talks about the losses. No one talks about the hard learned lessons from bad ops, or from really hard training things that eventually turned out to not be useful whatsoever, and you have to reset completely. I love it.
Just hang on a sec. Just hang on a sec. When you say nobody, that's a strong word.
You're right. You're right.
Because everyone that I worked with did. Because if they weren't talking about it, I was. And that's the thing. Like in small organizations or small units, or we'll call them specialist units, like when things go sideways, the wind has barely stopped going sideways when everyone's looking and saying, we got to talk about that. Like, it's going to get talked about, and it ain't going to be holding hands and staring into each other's eyes soothingly. It's going to be talked about. It's going to be sorted out lickety split. So I think that certain elements do talk about it and make the change instantaneously, whereas other elements don't. And that's why things never change. And so I feel personally, it didn't matter what unit I was in, I was always going to rock that boat on day one of my coming basically out of basic training. That's the way I've been. That's the way I feel about things. Everything can change for the better, but it doesn't do it in silence.
Yes, I agree. And thank you for the clarification. I should say that the public doesn't hear about those losses. They don't hear about those things. And I think more people need to, for sure. Mike, you got any thoughts on any of this?
I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here listening to you guys. There's so many great points that everybody's made. And I'll double down on what Shaun talked about. And I think it's a problem that, is plaguing society as a whole right now, is that we can't be honest. We can't be upfront. We're worried about offending people. Like, holy crap, man, you should be offended. You should walk around in a state of being offended. You should walk around in a state of humbleness and going, oof, man, I got to step up my game. I mean, the reason that special operation units are, special operation units, yes, there's the selection. Yes, there's the training. Yes, there's all the money, all these different kind of things, but it's the real magic that happens is the standards and the ruthless enforcement of them. if, AARs is what we call in the military, after action reviews. Okay. And I can, so many times in those AARs, especially as a young leader, I would walk away from them going, "Man, I think I got fired. Like, I don't think I have a job anymore." Like, and then some leader would come in and be like, "Hey, all right, listen. So here's the point. Here's why that happened. Let's talk about it. We got another iteration. Let's go. Boom, boom, boom." And now we carry on, and now we're better, and we've raised that limit. Going back to the original point, going to that limit. And there's so many parallels to draw here. And the saying that I'm very, very fond of is, you never ever rise to the level of your expectations. Some person, that you ask them, they're like, "Man, if I ever got in that MMA ring, oh, I'd mess that guy up. I'd do a flying knee
I
jump.
just see red, bro.
Yeah, right. Or I'd punch that drill sergeant in the face. Those kind of things. No, have you ever been in a fight? Well, no. Then you're so full of it, you have no idea what you're talking about. The point is you don't rise. You don't rise to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your conditioning and training. You're going to execute the things that you can execute, the things you've practiced 10,000 times when everything's on the line. Stress is high. You're looking at the guy across the ring from you, or you're looking at the enemy with the AK down the hallway, down the alleyway, and everything else. When everything's on the line, you're completely stressed, and everything's hitting your brain all at once. You're going to do what you're trained to do. You're going to do what you've coached, what you've practiced ruthlessly over and over and over again, not so that you perform perfectly, so that you don't get it wrong.
Yes, and that is something we've said on the show many times, and we've had guests say it many times, is you never rise to the occasion, you always fall to your level of training. And it 100%, it's seen every day on the mats. Anybody that goes to as a brand new white belt, and they walk in, they're thinking like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go sort some stuff out," and then they get, "Yeah, I did the same thing." I think everybody does. And then
they get things sorted out. That's for sure.
Yes, exactly. I got my first day on the jiu-jitsu mats. I got beat up by a 16-year-old blue belt girl. Like, she just tied me in knots for 45 minutes, and I walked out of there going, "Well, I got some work to do." I kind of went to town from there. I have a couple comments here before we carry this on that I just want to touch on, which are great. Great Dad Gear jumped in here. Dre, good to see you, buddy. He says 35-year-old 4th degree jiu-jitsu white belt here. I love where the podcast is going. This is it, man. And then we got Tommy Guitar jumping in here, said, "What if I fall? What if I fly?" Which is a fantastic question. And then Ethos Narrows jumped back in and said, "I think the losses are captured, lessons learned." And absolutely, they can be, but they're usually housed within the unit, and they don't go a lot of places after that, at least from my experience. And then carries on, "The Air Force was notoriously bad at lessons learned. They would capture them, but then they would never feed into actually implementing change. And it was always Larry at XYZ Squadron that had the info. Headquarters always deferred." Yeah. This is a challenge, especially in the Canadian military. We don't do it very well in the reg forces, especially the Air Force. There was a question in here that I want to throw at you guys that is really great. Ethos Narrows jumped in earlier and said,
"Sorry, Chance.
What do you got?"
Can I just a quick comment on Ethos's comments there, and that is talking about that higher level chain of command. Information gets pushed up. We need to fix the following ... It slides all the way up to the head shed. The head shed kind of hangs onto it and never gets disseminated. Nothing changes, etc., etc. Wash and repeat. Now, that doesn't happen in good units, because good units kind of sort it out. But I'll say good units now, and I'm going to get fancy, boy. I'm going to get particular. Let's go to an elite unit, where the elite unit learns lessons but keeps it internal, because the kind of lessons that are being learned are lessons that don't need to be publicly disseminated. And so that gold, that really like high-speed, low-drag stuff, doesn't get pushed out until the troops get posted back to a regular unit, and then it kind of like slow drips out through osmosis. There's no briefings, there's no standing in front of the podium and telling the masses this is how it's done. It's learned through just watching a guy walk across a hallway. or it's learned through how a guy ties his shoelaces, or it's learned how a guy picks up his book and makes a note as he looks you in the eye and says, I'll talk to you later. Those kind of lessons can be learned by anyone if they've got a keen eye. Critical thinking, critical eye is what will teach you a lot about how to do things so much better. That's something that we don't talk about a lot in the military as a whole, or in society as a whole, definitely not as men. The lessons that we learn as men, as fathers, husbands, etc., mixed martial artists, we learn those lessons, but we rarely have the time or make the time to sit down and brief another dude up about the lessons that were learned that day, that week, that month, that year. And so if the briefing isn't being given, then it's your job, everyone's job, and my job to start paying attention a little bit more closely to how that guy walks across the hallway.
So let me ask you this question to you guys here. Do you think that has to do, is that an internal limit that we put on ourselves? Is that something that we, as we grow up, as we like watch other men try to learn through osmosis, that we just kind of assume that that's the way it should be and kind of keep doing it the way it's been done? Or do you think that is a personal wall that we all kind of have to get through? Let's start with Keanan. What we got?
I mean, yeah, trial by fire, right? Everyone, everyone will learn their lessons in a different way, I guess. Passing it, how would you say it? Like passing the torch down to another guy, trying to get him that info. Yeah, it's like life is busy enough as it is, you know. Not that you wouldn't want to help a guy out and like give him the little pointers here, there, and everywhere, but you're usually so wound up in your own world and trying to keep everything together. It'd definitely be something you have to make a conscious effort of doing.
That's a good point. Life is busy, and it takes a lot to be able to sit down with somebody else, one of your bros, and be like, look, man, this is what I just learned. How about you? Mike, what are you thinking?
I think Keenan, he nailed it. Life is busy and it's about the internalization. I mean, the lessons are all around you. It's not necessarily, that a man's going to teach them to you. I mean, women can teach them to you, animals can teach them to you, nature can teach them to you. The time on the mat, getting your face, through a sweaty puddle, that has something to teach you. I think everything has, that would be humbleness, by the way. I think the lessons are all around us, but I do want to add, if you don't mind, just a little story. I'll keep it very, very brief. That I think this kind of it ties into this, and it talks about the importance of this conversation as a whole. I remember having a conversation when I took over a squadron in Germany. So it's about 800 individuals. I brought all the leadership in. I was coming in, and I talked to all the individuals, just about my expectations, who I was, and where I wanted the organization to go, from my outside observations, and kind of hitting the day one grounded. It didn't hit as well as I wanted it to, but there's one part that did. And as I kicked out most of the lower enlisted, all the specialists, all the privates and everything else at random, I just grabbed 3 of them. And I said, hey, just hold up by the stage, Everybody else left. So now it's all the non-commissioned officers, the officers, for the entire squadron, So there's probably about, maybe 150, 200 people left. And I asked each one of them, I said, hey, why did you join the Army? I can't tell you what the first or the third soldier said, but I will never, ever forget, and I still get chills to this day, to what the second soldier told me. And he said this, he said, I joined the Army because I grew up without a father, and I want to learn what it means to be a man so that I can be the example for my 2 sisters and my mother. And I was like blown away. This was not staged. Like, I didn't know this was going to happen. But my point is that this is something that's just lacking for a lot of people. And a lot of people just are not putting themselves in an environment where they can get this kind of mentorship, and they can get this kind of level of understanding. And they're just not, surrounding themselves by the right people. So talking, going back a little bit to what Keanan was saying, this can all be around you. This could all be happening. And that soldier could have just said that, and he could have just been saying it. But if he hadn't been willing to learn, if he hadn't had the willingness to accept the lessons of the people around him, it wouldn't have mattered either way. So I think it's actually a conversation of, are you willing to learn? Are you willing to accept your flaws, the gaps, the mistakes, and everything else? And if you're not, then that's on you, and you've got to take ownership of that.
And there's another additional point on this that I actually have a video that we're going to put up right after this. And it really goes into not only that soldier being willing to learn, being able to ask, but you yourself looking for information from the junior enlisted, right? Most senior NCOs, most officers I know don't usually ask the seasoned lower enlisted their opinions, and they don't really ask for what they think about certain stuff. But I think it's really important that we bring that up. Now, I got this video, and it goes right in line with what we're talking about, and I'm going to put it up, and then we're going to discuss it from there. So here we go.
This quote from Emerson, where he says, "In the minds of geniuses, we find our own neglected thoughts." So key. In the minds of geniuses, we find our own neglected thoughts. I think what he was saying there was, geniuses don't have thoughts that are categorically different from the ones everybody has. What's different is they hold on to them, they look at them, they feel them. You could say in the minds of artists lie feelings that, lie our own neglected feelings. In other words, artists, geniuses, etc., they're just paying more attention to the stuff that's in everybody's mind. It's not that their stuff in their mind is completely, radically different, which is why often when you hear a great song or a great piece of poetry or whatever, or read a great book, sometimes you think, I kind of knew that was already in me, that I'm merely being put back in touch with something that's in me already. Because what the so-called clever person has done is just pay it more attention. So let's not deify these people. And let's also open up, quickest way to become a genius, pay more attention to your own neglected thoughts.
Bam. Well, let's get some thoughts. Mike, I'm going to start with you. What do you think?
Yeah, that video hit me pretty hard because it's something, as I've, 25 years I spent my life doing something. And, it's only been within the last couple of years I've transitioned. And I've become so more keen to just things that, one, I didn't have the time for, but that's really, honestly, when I say that, that's an excuse. The real truth of it is I didn't have the patience and the emotional intelligence for it. And examples are, my wife, my kids, my friends. I can always just say, hey, love to chat about this. Hey, I'd love to talk about this, but hey, I really got this important training. I got this deployment. I got this. Hey, let's shelve this. Let's talk about this later. And really, my point in saying that is that I was just trying to compartmentalize everything else in my life because I wanted to be selfish and focus on the thing that excited me, that gave me fulfillment and was important to me, instead of the things that were important to them. And then that robbed those people, and it also robbed me of connections. And I say all this understanding that I'm about to end it because it's not a completed thought, because I'm still through this. I'm going through this journey. I don't have the answer of how you fix this yet. I just know that I'm in the process of trying. And it's been two things at the same time: the most rewarding and the most difficult thing I've ever done in my flipping life.
The transition out of the military, especially for a lot of the guys I know that have been in 20 plus years, it is, not only is it challenging, but it is, like you said, ultimately very rewarding. Keanan, any thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a vastly different experience for me. I can't imagine what you guys go through and what it's like coming home and try to adapt to a civilian life. I can't even, doesn't even register, I've gone from, just being a regular guy and doing trades to, being, athletically gifted, and I had to put what I had somewhere because I was going nuts, But
you've had to re-identify yourself. Keanan, if I could step in here, man.
Oh, please do.
Yeah. No. And the only reason is, and I'm sorry, but
no.
Man, don't sell yourself short. Don't compare. Comparison is the thief of joy. I've trained. Okay, I've trained for a lot of different things in my life, but the conscious decision to decide I'm going to make my living, I'm going to make a name for myself by fighting somebody in a structured, way in a ring, dude. No, thank you. I'd rather carry a gun, have a knife, have a sidearm. Like, I want to make sure that I've got the tactical advantage in every opportunity, in every fight. I'm never going to fight a fair fight. I choose not to. Like, I consciously choose not to. But all I'm saying is that, like, what you're talking about is no different than what I was talking about. Athlete, and I don't know all the athletics that you did prior to, but those didn't pan out the way maybe they did. Maybe they just reached a culmination point, and you had to make a decision because those identities were gone. That of what am I going to do next? And now you're immersing yourself in that. That's no different. I'm restructuring my identity because my identity was gone. And they could even make a different argument that, and this is something that, I'm having a conversation with a lot of people about this right now. A lot of us joined the military like right at 18, 19, maybe 21 years old. What in the hell do you know about anything at that age as a man?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So, and then you spend the next 20 plus years in the military. When you get on it, it's not a loss of identity. You don't have an identity. The military is your identity. So now I'm trying to find out, and I literally was sitting with my wife last night talking about this. I'm trying to figure out who I am because I'm not quite sure.
We had Tyler Gray on just a couple weeks ago. He said the exact same thing,
Tyler?
man. And
that's
super squared away.
I'm sorry. Dude. Him and I are the ones having this conversation.
There you go.
I stole that. That's crazy. I didn't realize you had Tyler on. Yeah, Tyler and I were literally, we've been talking about this every single week for probably like the last 3 months.
He hit us with that one, and I turned it into a clip right away because it was just such a great line. And it is absolutely true. We go into, I say a lot of us go into the military with absolutely no identity whatsoever, and we just absorb the military as an identity. But then again, I see this also with kids that play hockey, especially in Canada at a very young age. They go to AAA, then they go into the juniors, and they start working their way up, and they're like, oh, I'm a hockey player. That's just that's their identity. And whether they make it to the NHL or not doesn't matter because they're hockey players. And when hockey stops, now what? They have nothing from there. Keanan, what do you got?
Played juniors until I was 20 years old. That's about all I did from the time I was 8. I went to hockey schools that were from 7 a.m. till 7 and 8, 5 days a week, tournaments, all that. So I completely get it. Yeah. And once I hit 20, I became, father and a husband and just dove into the workforce. So yeah, there's a lot of pivotal moments in your life where you gotta readjust and re-engage.
And so I think this goes into what we're talking about. Shaun, I want to get your opinion on this as well, is the fact that, the limits within, the ones we put on ourselves, a lot of that is our identity that we put on within ourselves as we grow it, as I became a soldier, that was my limit. I thought that was where I was going to be. I'm going to be a soldier for the rest of my life. Cool. Great. Done. Without the thought of what's after, without the thought of then what. And it wasn't until after I got out and I started working with horses and started doing podcasting and started doing advocacy and all these things that I started to realize that I had just placed this limit in front of me of I'm just a soldier and then nothing beyond it. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
Going back a little bit to what Mike said, and he was talking about how, when you screw things up in the military, the great news is you get to iterate it. If you've got good leadership or you've got good peers, if you blow something, you'll get to do it again and do it better, do it right. And iterations are great. And more importantly than iterations is the understanding that you can iterate. And I think that, that sounds like, that's a minor nuance. No, it isn't. Most people don't understand that not only can you reiterate things, that you should be reiterating things. Because if you're a one and doneer, like, Keanan, we had met, of course, and Keanan is kind of he's a natural. He's natural at things that he does. I'm a bit of a natural as well. I have a little bit of genetic gifting as well. And so things come to me relatively easily initially. Doesn't mean that they're easy. They just come relatively easy initially. But that can be problematic. Then there's people that things come to them extremely difficult. That can be problematic. But whether it's easy or hard is neither here nor there, honestly. It's understanding that you get to iterate. And I prefer to have someone who learns slowly or is a hard learner, because by the time they've got it figured out, they've got 1,000 lessons under their belt. But someone who gets, like, if it comes a bit too easy, they get 2 lessons, maybe only 1 lesson, maybe no lesson. And all of a sudden it's bam, 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 podium after podium after podium after podium. But you kind of start becoming a bit of an empty shell, a naturally gifted empty shell. So it's the lessons, the failures that teach you how to fill the shell. The wins barely teach you anything other than you like winning. And if you start falling in love with winning, then you don't want to lose. But the losses are where the shell gets filled. So that's just a thought. I think going back to how we were talking about limits and how we limit ourselves and how we hold ourselves back, or life holds ourselves back. As far as I'm concerned, to take it back into a central pillar again, it really is about who's around you and what you understand about life. If you were raised in a cave and never left the cave, you'll probably never see your full potential. But if you're raised up in the wide open world with all sorts of characters moving in and out of your life, you get to choose who they are. And if you're being smart, you'll choose good people. And those good people will take you towards the direction that shows you your potential, the potential that you don't understand you've got. So it's your job to start following good people, start listening to good advice, and start becoming an awesome person. But it isn't that easy, because if it was, everyone would be doing it. And so where's the loss? Where's the missing ingredient? Where's the misunderstood part of this, that all you have to do is hang out with super freaking cool people and the rest takes care of itself? Why does that not get picked up by the general population? Why is it that no one really sinks their teeth into that idea of just freaking find amazing people? I follow people on Instagram. It's generally all I exist on. I follow people that just make me feel like I have got to pick up my pace. What the hell? I'm 3% into this. They're 112% into this. How did I get so far behind? Why did I not know this sooner? In my 60s, every day, I say to myself on social media, man, how did I not know this? I got to try harder. So, I mean, if you're not saying to yourself today, man, I got to try harder, what are you saying? I got to go easier? So that's my question to you guys.
What do you guys think? Mike, I'm going to put you up first. What do you got?
I think the simple, just to simplify it as easy as or quickly as possible, is fear. People don't do it because they're scared of rejection, not being good enough, to put themselves in those rooms, I mean, you guys see it. It sounds like you guys are in jiu-jitsu gyms a lot. How many people walk in to do a tour and then you never ever see them again? How many people go into CrossFit gyms? I mean, you name it. How many people say, well, I almost joined the military, but you're like, okay, but what's a but? It's an excuse, and I mean, it's a similar thing. You guys even said, you guys asked before, we were recording, you're like, Mike, do you roll, do you train and stuff like that? I kind of hemmed and hawed, and you're like, yeah, life's busy, all this different. Shut the fuck up. Sorry for my language, but thank you for saying that. But yes, I have an excuse. I am a broken old man that has gotten his teeth and his head punched too many damn times to count. So I just consciously don't do it because it hurts. I mean, let's just be honest, I'm really, really talented at breaking people's hands with my eyeballs and my nose. I don't know why. I'm good at it. I'm really good at it, actually. But I mean, my point is sorry, I kind of went down a tangent there, but it's fear. That's why people don't do it. It's a fear of rejection. It's a fear of not being good enough. And you just have to get over that. You have to make the conscious decision, I'm going to do X, and you don't stop until you're in the room with the people, and then you just embrace it and you desire every day to be a better version of yourself.
I love it. Keanan, any thoughts?
Mike nailed it, man. When you're scared to jump, that's exactly when you need to go. That's when you need to pull the trigger, jump in, and get after it. You know, it's get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's as simple as I can put it.
Yeah. I actually had one of my students on the jiu-jitsu mats recently hit me up with, whenever you're smothering me, that's when I learn the most. And I was like, well, I'm glad. I'm glad somebody's getting something out of it. But the point is, like, when you have pressure, when you were just sitting there under pressure, your brain will tell you all kinds of things. And one of them is going to be run or get out of here, do whatever you need to do, get out of here. But eventually you have to say, no, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to deal with this fear. I'm going to deal with this pain. I'm going to deal with this because it's going to end at some point. And then you work through those lessons. Shaun, what do you got?
I got a question for you guys as we're talking about fear. The video where the individual was referring to geniuses or how geniuses think or how you too can be a genius. Do you think it's fear that holds people back from thinking outside of the box as he was discussing? Do you think it's fear that holds people back to sit down and more deeply consider who they really are, not their label, but who they are as a essence of a human being? Is it fear that holds people back? Is it just, I want to watch Netflix? What is it? Do you think it's fear that holds back geniuses? Or is it distraction that holds back geniuses?
It's a good question, Keanan. Gonna hit you first.
Both. I don't think it matters if you're a genius or if you're just a regular person. It's, who doesn't like being comfortable, right? If you have all that comfortability around you, people are just naturally gonna succeed to it, right? Like, why work harder when I have this? You don't get much. What would be a good word? You don't get much value out of life living like that.
But that value is different for every person, right? I think that you're
Fair.
right, though. Like, most people will probably sit back and be like, I don't really want to work that hard. I don't have to. Especially in North America, man, we don't have to do anything. Like, it's mind-blowing at times that there are people in the places that we live that can literally do nothing
The bare minimum.
and survive, right? Like, it blows my mind. Mike, you got any thoughts?
I think the complacency, the comfort aspect of it, why do more when I'm perfectly comfortable and perfectly fine with, the current state of things. A lot of people hit me up, wanting to join the military, and I don't think it's necessarily a military thing. I think it's just a life thing. What I'll tell them is there's people that join the military and they join the military and then they just do their time and then they get out of the military. And then there's people that are successful in the military. And I think that applies to life. There's people that are just living their life. I used to have this friend. I love him, but I used to often say that, he's just falling through life, hoping not to hit anything on the way down. Meaning, he's just existing. And it's not that he's a bad guy, but like, hey man, like if you want to be successful, you got to step outside your comfort zone. You got to step to new challenges. You got to, find people that are going to challenge you and hold you accountable. All the things that we've already been talking about, and I've been talking about, but my point I will make with these kids, when I talk to them about joining the military, if you're going to be successful, then you've really, really got to immerse yourself in the culture. And it applies to anything, any professional endeavor. You got to immerse yourself in the culture and be challenging the paradigms. In this conversation about geniuses, they're willing to do that. In fact, I would argue that a lot of the geniuses that we currently see, and they're a lot more available now, people that we would consider geniuses of our era, they actually are more comfortable being in those positions of high volume and adversity and everything else that's where they're comfortable at. They've literally created a life for themselves where that's where they thrive, that's where they grow, and that's really where they achieve great things.
I like where you guys are going with this. I was talking to my wife about this particular video last night, and she was telling me, she was like, "Well, I don't really know about, do geniuses, are they really geniuses then if they're just focused more on one thing than anything else?" And I was thinking back to the people that I saw in the military that were very successful, as you were saying, Mike, that like they knew the right people, they got the right courses at the right time, they were able to advance their career quite quickly and learn the lessons faster than perhaps others. And what it comes down to sometimes it's just luck, right? You run into the right person at the right time to set you up for that, for the things. But mostly what it comes down to, as you said, is the immersion. They would just, whatever you want me to do, I'm down. Hit me. Tell me where to go, how to be. I will be there. I will do that thing. Cool. And that immersion in whatever it is you want to do, for Shaun and I, it was podcasting, right? I was telling you about this before the show, doing a podcast a day for the year. That immersed us so deeply into what podcasting was that it allowed us to get to where we are now. And I think that immersion is super important, because if we don't immerse ourselves in the thing that we want to do, we never really know what it's like. I was watching a video a while ago about a gentleman who was saying that, we all kind of go through life in a state of general discomfort, especially in North America. But that general discomfort's not bad enough to make us do anything about it. But it's also not really good enough that we can celebrate it and be like, yay, awesome, good life. It's just kind of a, yeah, I'll be okay. And then that's 40 years later, that okay is, I got nothing. I've done nothing with my life, that kind of deal. So I love where this is going. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
I do. So I asked the question specifically because now I'll do a follow-on. And so I am a genius. At least my IQ says I am. And I didn't know that until I left the military. And I've been tested 3 independent times. And, my IQ isn't like super impressive, but it's genius level. And so, but that doesn't make me smart. That just means that I know what my IQ is. But I didn't know that until a while ago. When I joined the military, I thought I was dumb. Thought I was dumb as a rock, because that's what all the teachers were telling me in high school. I wasn't interested in school. They bored me. And so when I joined the military, I thought, man, I'm a dumb kid. And I weighed 135 pounds. I was a total underperformer as far as I was concerned. That's what I was telling myself. But as it turns out, things came pretty easy to me. And I started paying attention. I started trying harder. And people were telling me to do this, and I'd go do it, and I'd do it pretty well. Then I started getting some self-confidence. Then I started believing in myself. Then I started pushing that pace. No one ever coached me through that stuff. I was just aggressively pursuing the best version of myself. But along the way, what I started to see, like over the years, not over the weeks or months, but over the years, what I started to see was a pattern of performance that you could loosely argue was pretty good, was bordering on excellence. And so I had to have a number of wins, we'll call it. I had to connect a bunch of dots over a period of many years till I finally thought, hey, I'm not bad at this stuff. Then that changed to, hey, I'm pretty good at this stuff. Then it changed to, I can teach people how to do this stuff. And that's the natural evolution of anyone who learns who they are. So I showed up dumb as a brick, 135 pounds, and wondering if I'd even survive the army. As it turns out, I did all right. And so how did that happen? That was me pushing my own internal pace with no one back in the day teaching me how to, other than all the dudes around me. I'd look at a guy and think, how he walks, that's how I'm going to start walking. How he pauses, that's how I'm going to pause. When he cocks his head like that to listen into the wind, I'm going to start doing that myself. And so all along the way, the entire world mentored me. But then my little genius brain, which is laughable, I had to play with all of those things. And that, I believe, is the path to success. Not that you have to be a genius. What you have to do is observe the world around you, cherry pick the stuff that works for your mind, play with it, see if you can turn it into an outcome, and then reiterate. Just as Mike said, the iterations are infinite. Don't ever believe it's a one and done. And so now to my final point. I never used to talk about my IQ, and I never used to talk about my military career. I never used to talk about a lot of things. But about 3 years ago, there was a dude who was on a podcast, and he's a character, but he talked about special operations and how he'd interviewed a boatload of them down in the United States Special Operations Command when they were posting out of service. And all of those interviews that he did, he formed a pattern. And as it turns out, a lot of special operations guys have genius level IQs. And a lot of them are from families that didn't have a dad or an absent dad. And so there's a pattern of things that can stack up that can create an individual on the start line that can have immense success. But you don't know it when you're 18 because no one's talking about it. So when that guy about 3 years ago started talking about all you special operators have got to start talking about your IQ or how you found out how to think. Well, that's what I'm doing now. And I don't like it. It makes me feel super uncomfortable that I'm saying I'm a genius. Because anyone who knows me in Rossland, Keanan himself, wouldn't think I'm a genius at all. Sometimes I'm the village idiot, and that's a fact. But, you've got to believe what you're experiencing. And then at 18, you haven't experienced enough to understand any of this. But by the time you're in your 30s, you should have put some dots together and understand how you can punch forward into the future to create some freaking amazing positive outcomes.
I wish we could go down this rabbit hole because this opens up a whole friggin' thing. But we're just about an hour right now, and I'm going to have to shut her down for the afternoon. I do want to get some. No, it's all good, man. You opened up a can of worms. We're going to have Mike and Keanan back to talk about this. So absolutely, we're going to get it going. I want to get some final thoughts on anything that we've talked about. I have a ton of comments that I wish I could hit all of these because there's some back and forth going on the Instagram side that was just awesome. But we just don't have time. I want to get some final thoughts. Mike, we'll start with you. What do you got? Anything still bubbling in the back of your brain about today's conversation or anything you want to get across?
I mean, we've talked about so much, Shaun, something that I've heard before. I believe it's David Carnegie that said it. You spend the first third of your life learning. You spend the second third putting into practice what you've learned. And then you spend the last third of your life mentoring and developing others. There's obviously some layering across all of that. The timeline of life, and we tend to probably live a lot longer than was back then. But the point I wanted to make with all that is that you continuously got to learn, in my opinion. And even at 60 years old, you're learning new things about yourself. And these podcasts are just such a great way to do it. Not only because of how this has impacted all four of us, but hopefully we've all said something. And a podcaster told me this one time. I don't record a podcast for millions of people. I record a podcast for one person. And if I impact one person, then the time spent, this hour spent, one person decides to make a revolutionary change in their life, then it's worth all four of our time today. So thank you for having me on. This has been amazing.
I could not agree more. That's a beautiful line. Keanan, any final thoughts?
No, nothing in particular. I'm just very honored to be here with you guys. It was, believe it or not, still learning lots from everyone, but you guys are your depth of experience, you can hear it in all your guys' stories, and a lot of it resonated with me. It was reinstilled a couple key lessons in my head that need to keep being repeated. I really appreciate it.
Dig it. I think the only real difference is perhaps maybe you've been punched in the head a little bit more often than we have, but who knows? Try not to, right? But
that's not the goal.
Not the goal, but sometimes you got to rely on your chin a little bit.
Exactly. Shaun, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do have some final thoughts, and you're right, Chance, that the can of worms that I opened up right at the back end there, we should probably save for another day. But the point that I did put up as my final point was important for people to start chewing on now, because though we covered a lot of material today, there's some things that will change your life. Just some simple concepts that you could grasp today about some of the things that the fellas have said that will change your life. And I think maybe that's how I'm going to wrap it up. Is do you want to change your life? You know, are you happy with where you're at? Are you good with mediocrity? I'll put it that way. Because in order to experience your full potential, you've got to be unhappy with your current state of affairs. And that unhappy doesn't have to be a positive or a negative. It just means that you're unhappy and you want change. Change is good, in my opinion, but some people think it is bad. Well, if you're comfortable with mediocrity, then, don't chase change. But I think as humans, we have a binary choice. We can pursue our full potential selfishly, or we can pursue our full potential so that others can see and be inspired by it. Now, as passive observers of people who are out there getting it done, you can learn a lot from them. But as Mike said, I'm now in that back phase of my life at 62, where the small amount of lessons that I've learned in my life, but more correctly, the large amount of wisdom that I've gained from all of the people that I've met in my life, that's what I'm trying to pass on now. So I'm not doing as good a job of it as I could at times, but I do know that it's an important job that I would be remiss to not engage in now. Because when I'm at 80, I'll be bummed if I slack-assed my way through my 60s. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I have one thought, and then I have a comment that I want to use as a kind of a final thought here, and that is, we all have to take ownership for what we do. Obviously, we all have to take ownership for the limits that we place on ourselves, and we all have to be able to move forward in life. But I would say one of the things, like on all the comments I got here, a lot of people said the thing that holds most people back is pain and fear. And I think those two things kind of play into each other. But when you can learn how to accept pain and kind of like put your head down a little bit and like, all right, we're going to eat this, let's get it, and lean into that pain, that's where you're going to get a lot of success in life, and in building a life that you want, is when you can kind of lean into that pain. And this comment I want to touch on, and then we can shut her down for the afternoon. Dan C jumped in here. He said, we're all role models, good or bad. Everyone is a role model. It's up to you who you model yourself after and who will model themselves after you. And that puts a lot of responsibility in your hands, which is the thing I love. So as we all continue to learn, build, and grow, we'll see y'all next week. Cheers.
Thanks everybody for watching and being part of the collective. If this has sparked any thoughts or resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us grow and keeps the conversation going. We'll see y'all next time.